Have you ever felt stuck in your training, like you're putting in the work but not seeing results? Hitting a plateau can feel frustrating, but it's actually a critical moment in your journey. The good news, knowing how to break out of a plateau can set you up for even better gains. So when you hit a plateau, what do you actually need to break free to keep progressing? It all comes down to effective programming. And here's the thing, there's no single magic fix. You have to understand yourself as a trainee and almost take a step back as if you were your own coach. You need to be able to look at yourself from a 10,000 foot view as a coach would look onto you if they were to build your program. And you have to assess where you're at just like a trainer would and use this perspective to create a program for yourself. Learning to program for yourself is probably one of the most valuable skills you can invest in to build your physique. It's not about finding the perfect exercise or rep range. It's about learning how to blend exercises, volume, intensity, and rest in a way that is tailored to you. Any one of these topics isn't more important than the other. They all work together based on you, your training history, your training goals, and your skill level. So before you dive into the next trendy program or technique, start by getting specific about your own training journey. Knowing where you've been and what works for you gives you the why behind your programming. So I would encourage you to grab a piece of paper or open a document and answer these questions about your training history. How long have you been training? What got you into it? And what are you excited about it? What were your initial goals? And what are your current goals? What lifts have you done? And what's your skill level with them? Which lifts do you enjoy the most? Why? Which lifts do you enjoy the least? Why? What different styles of training have you followed? What splits have you ran? What has worked well? What hasn't worked well? And the list could really go on. And the more specific you get, the easier it'll be to make programming decisions right now and down the road. I know this might seem tedious and boring, but taking the time to write out this info, no matter where you're at in your journey, will save you so much time in the future. This is just collecting data on your past to know basically what has worked, what hasn't worked, where you're currently at, where you started, and this information is what you need to actually build your program. It's all fine and all to get tips from other people, but if you don't know how to apply that to your own training history, your own background into training, and your level of progress, then those tips really go unusable at times, especially when you're in the intermediate stage of training. It's so easy to fall into this intermediate phase and you have beginner programs that used to work for you and you're still following, yet you're consuming more advanced technique stuff and you're throwing it in and mixing them. And maybe those techniques and principles may work for somebody, but you're just mixing and matching stuff that is going to lead to zero progress and you're just going to be stalled at the intermediate phase. So getting this data on yourself is essential and it's a must if you want to build a program for yourself. So step one, create your training blueprint. Write down every detail about your training history, your goals, your favorite lifts, and what's worked best for you. This blueprint will guide you to make decisions that are tailored specifically to you. Now that you have this info, it'll act as a guide to help you build out your program and add the why behind each decision. Often, people who create their own programs just take bits and pieces of advice that they've heard and just stitch them together to create a routine. And it's not that these pieces of advice are bad, but they may or may not be the right thing for you at your specific time in your journey. And you don't just need good advice, you need the right advice for you for where you're currently at. And only you or someone who knows your training history can determine that. One important question to ask yourself is, what is your goal? What is your actual training goal? What's the outcome that you want? Not your friend's goal or some influencer's goal, but your goal. This is what will shape your program and give it direction. If you get this wrong, you will be headed down the wrong direction. So get very clear on what your actual goal is. What do you actually want to happen from your training? Next, think about how often you can realistically train. Not how many days you want to train, but how many you will actually be able to train for. Be honest with yourself, because this will determine your split and how you'll organize your week around your training. This is a great place to start building your program. With this info, each training variable like exercise selection, volume, intensity, and frequency can be broken down based on your experience, history, goals, and strengths and weaknesses. Stay tuned for future videos where I will break down programming tactics for intensity, volume, rep ranges, exercise selection, training splits, and pretty much any other variable in training, and it will be presented with the goal of building as much muscle as you can. And if you'd like to see a breakdown of specific programs on different training goals or challenges, let me know in the comments. I'd love to create content that helps you break through your own plateaus. So until next time, take care, everyone.